Book 11, Chapter 21. I said then even now, we measure times as they pass, in order to be able to say, this time is twice so much as that one, or this is just so much as that, and so of any other parts of time which are measurable. Wherefore, as I said, we measure times as they pass. And if any should ask me, how knowest thou? I might answer, I know that we do measure, nor can we measure things that are not, and things past and to come are not. But time present how do we measure, seeing it has no space? It is measured while passing, but when it shall have passed, it is not measured, for there will be nothing to be measured. But whence, by what way, and whither passes it while it is a-measuring? Whence, but from the future? Which way, but through the present? Whither, but into the past? From that therefore, which is not yet, through that, which hath no space, into that, which now is not. Yet what do we measure, if not time in some space? For we do not say, single, and double, and triple, and equal, or any other like way that we speak of time, except of spaces of time. In what space then do we measure time passing? In the future, whence it passeth through, but what is not yet we measure not. Or in the present, by which it passes, but no space we do not measure. Or in the past, into which it passes, but neither do we measure that, which now is not. Chapter 22. My soul is on fire to know this most intricate enigma. Shut it not up, O Lord my God, good Father, through Christ I beseech thee, do not shut up these usual yet hidden things from my desire, that it be hindered from piercing into them, but let them dawn through thy enlightening mercy, O Lord. Whom shall I inquire of concerning these things? And to whom shall I more fruitfully confess my ignorance, than to thee, to whom these my studies, so vehemently kindled toward thy Scriptures, are not troublesome? Give what I love, for I do love, and this hast thou given me. Give, Father, who truly knowest to give good gifts unto thy children. Give, because I have taken upon me to know, and trouble is before me unless thou openest it. By Christ I beseech thee, in his name, Holy of Holies, let no man disturb me. For I believed, and therefore do I speak. This is my hope, for this do I live, that I may contemplate the delights of the Lord. Behold, thou hast made my days old, and they pass away, and how, I know not. And we talk of time, and time, and times, and times. How long time is it since he said this? How long time since he did this? And how long time since I saw that? And this syllable hath double time to that single short syllable. These words we speak, and these we hear, and are understood, and understand. Most manifest and ordinary they are, and the selfsame things again are but too deeply hidden, and the discovery of them were new. Chapter 23. I heard once from a learned man, that the motions of the sun, moon, and stars constituted time, and I assented not. For why should not the motions of all bodies rather be times? Or if the lights of heaven should cease, and a potter's wheel run round, should there be no time by which we might measure these whirlings, and say that either it moved with equal pauses, or if it turned sometimes slower, otherwhiles quicker, that some rounds were longer, others shorter? Or, while we were saying this, should we not also be speaking in time? Or should there in our words be some syllables short, others long, but because these sounded in a shorter time, these in a longer? God, grant to men to see in a small thing notices common to things great and small. The stars and lights of heaven are also for signs and for seasons, and for years and for days. They are, yet neither should I say that the going round of that wooden wheel was a day, nor yet he that it was therefore no time. I desire to know the force and nature of time, by which we measure the motions of bodies, and say, for example, this motion is twice as long as that. For I ask, seeing day denotes not the stay only of the sun upon the earth, according to which day is one thing, night another, but also its whole circuit from east to east again, according to which we say, there passed so many days, the night being included when we say so many days, and the nights not reckoned apart. Seeing then a day is completed by the motion of the sun, and by his circuit from east to east again, I ask, does the motion alone make the day, or the stay in which that motion is completed, or both? For if the first be the day, then should we have a day, although the sun should finish that course in so small a space of time as 1 hour comes to. If the second, then should not that make a day, if between one sunrise and another there were but so short a stay as 1 hour comes to, but the sun must go 24 times about to complete one day? If both, then neither could that be called a day, if the sun should run his whole round in the space of 1 hour, nor that, if, while the sun stood still, so much time should overpass, as the sun usually makes his whole course in, from morning to morning. I will not therefore now ask, what that is which is called day, but what time is, whereby we, measuring the circuit of the sun, should say that it was finished in half the time it was wont, if so be it was finished in so small a space as 12 hours, and comparing both times should call this a single time, that a double time. Even supposing the sun to run his round from east to east, sometimes in that single, sometimes in that double time. Let no man tell me, that the motions of the heavenly bodies constitute times, because, when at the prayer of one, the sun had stood still, till he could achieve his victorious battle, the sun stood still, but time went on. For in its allotted space of time was that battle waged and ended. I perceive time then to be a certain extension. But do I perceive it, or seem to perceive it? Thou, light and truth, wilt show me. Chapter 24. Dost thou bid me assent, if any define time to be motion of a body? Thou dost not bid me. For that no body is moved but in time, I hear, this thou sayest. But that the motion of a body is time, I hear not, thou sayest it not. For when a body is moved, I by time measure how long it moveth, from the time it began to move until it left off. And if I did not see whence it began, and it continue to move so that I see not when it ends, I cannot measure, save perchance from the time I began, until I cease to see. And if I look long, I can only pronounce it to be a long time, but not how long. Because when we say, how long, we do it by comparison, as, this is as long as that, or this is twice so long as that, or the like. But when we can mark the distances of the places, whence and whither goeth the body moved, or his parts, if it moved as in a lathe, then can we say precisely on how much time the motion of that body or his part, from this place unto that, was finished. Seeing therefore the motion of a body is one thing, and that by which we measure how long it is, another, who sees not, which of the two is rather to be called time? For and if a body be sometimes moved, sometimes stand still, then we measure, not his motion only, but his standing still too by time, and we say, it stood still as much as it moved, or it stood still twice or thrice so long as it moved, or any other space which our measuring hath either ascertained or guessed, more or less, as we used to say. Time then is not the motion of a body. Chapter 25. And I confess to thee, O Lord, that I yet know not what time is. And again I confess to thee, O Lord, that I know that I speak this in time, and that having long spoken of time, that very long is not long, but by the pause of time. How then know I this, seeing I know not what time is? Or is it perchance that I know not how to express what I know? Woe is me, that do not even know what I know not. Behold, O my God, before Thee I lie not, but as I speak, so in my heart. Thou shalt light my candle. Thou, O Lord my God, wilt enlighten my darkness. Chapter 26. Does not my soul most truly confess unto Thee, that I do measure times? Do I then measure, O my God, and know not what I measure? I measure the motion of a body in time, and the time itself do I not measure? Or could I indeed measure the motion of a body, how long it were, and how long space it could come from this place to that, without measuring the time in which it is moved? The same time then, how do I measure? Do we by a shorter time measure a longer, as by the space of a cubit the space of a rood? For so indeed we seem by the space of a short syllable to measure the space of a long syllable, and to say that this is double the other. Thus measure we the spaces of stanzas by the spaces of the verses, and the spaces of the verses by the spaces of the feet, and the spaces of the feet by the spaces of the syllables, and the spaces of long by the spaces of short syllables, not measuring by pages, for then we measure spaces, not times. But when we utter the words and they pass by, and we say, it is a long stanza because composed of so many verses, long verses because consisting of so many feet, long feet because prolonged by so many syllables, a long syllable because double to a short one. But neither do we this way obtain any certain measure of time, because it may be that a shorter verse, pronounced more fully, may take up more time than a longer, pronounced hurriedly. And so for a verse, a foot, a syllable. Whence it seemed to me that time is nothing else than protraction, but of what I know not. And I marvel if it not be of the mind itself. For what I beseech Thee, O my God, do I measure, when I say either indefinitely, this is a longer time than that, or definitely, this is double that. That I measure time I know, and yet I measure not time to come, for it is not yet, nor present, because it is not protracted by any space, nor past, because it now is not. What then do I measure? Times passing, not past? For so I said. Chapter 27. Courage, my mind, and press on mightily. God is our helper. He made us and not we ourselves. Press on where truth begins to dawn. Suppose now the voice of a body begins to sound, and does sound, and sounds on, and list, it ceases. It is silence now, and that voice is past, and is no more a voice. Before it sounded, it was to come, and could not be measured, because as yet it was not. And now it cannot, because it is no longer. Then therefore, while it sounded, it might, because there then was what might be measured. But yet even then it was not at a stay, for it was passing on and passing away. Could it be measured the rather for that? For while passing it was being extended into some space of time, so that it might be measured, since the present hath no space. If therefore it might, then lo, suppose another voice hath begun to sound, and still soundeth in one continued tenor without any interruption, let us measure it while it sounds, seeing when it hath left sounding, it will then be past, and nothing left to be measured. Let us measure it verily, and tell how much it is. But it sounds still, nor can it be measured but from the instant it began in, unto the end it left in. For the very space between is the thing we measure, namely, from some beginning unto some end. Wherefore a voice that is not yet ended cannot be measured, so that it may be said how long or short it is. Nor can it be called equal to another or double to a single or the like, but when ended it no longer is. How may it then be measured? And yet we measure times, but yet neither those which are not yet, nor those which no longer are, nor those which are not lengthened out by some pause, nor those which have no bounds. We measure neither times to come, nor past, nor present, nor passing, and yet we do measure times. Deus creator omnium. This verse of 8 syllables alternates between short and long syllables. The 4 short, then, the first, third, fifth, and seventh, are but single in respect of the 4 long, the second, fourth, sixth, and eighth. Every one of these, to every one of those, hath a double time. I pronounce them, report on them, and find it so, as one's plain sense perceives. By plain sense, then, I measure a long syllable by a short, and I sensibly find it to have twice so much. But when one sounds after the other, if the former be short, the latter long, how shall I detain the short one, and how, measuring, shall I apply it to the long, that I may find this to have twice so much, seeing the long does not begin to sound, unless the short leaves sounding? And that very long one do I measure as present, seeing I measure it not till it be ended. Now his ending is his passing away. What then is it I measure? Where is the short syllable by which I measure? Where the long which I measure? Both have sounded, have flown, passed away, are no more. And yet I measure, and confidently answer, so far as is presumed on a practised sense, that as to space of time this syllable is but single, that double. And yet I could not do this unless they were already past and ended. It is not then themselves, which now are not, that I measure, but something in my memory, which there remains fixed. It is in Thee, my mind, that I measure times. Interrupt me not, that is, interrupt not myself with the tumults of Thy impressions. In Thee I measure times. The impression, which things as they pass by cause in Thee, remains even when they are gone. This it is which still present I measure, not the things which pass by to make this impression. This I measure when I measure times. Either then this is time, or I do not measure times. What when we measure silence, and say that this silence hath held as long time as did that voice? Do we not stretch out our thought to the measure of a voice, as if it sounded, so that we may be able to report of the intervals of silence in a given space of time? For though both voice and tongue be still, yet in thought we go over poems and verses and any other discourse, or dimensions of motions, and report as to the spaces of times, how much this is in respect of that, no otherwise than if vocally we did pronounce them. If a man would utter a lengthened sound, and had settled in thought how long it should be, he hath in silence already gone through a space of time, and committing it to memory, begins to utter that speech which sounds on until it be brought into the end proposed. Yea, it hath sounded, and will sound, for so much of it as is finished hath sounded already, and the rest will sound, and thus passed it on, until the present intent conveys over the future into the past increasing by the diminution of the future, until by the consumption of the future all is past. Chapter 28. But how is that future diminished or consumed, which as yet is not? Or how that past increased, which is now no longer, save that in the mind which enacteth this, there be 3 things done? For it expects, it considers, it remembers. That so that which it expecteth, through that which it considereth, passeth into that which it remembereth. Who therefore denieth that things to come are not as yet? And yet there is in the mind an expectation of things to come. And who denies past things to be now no longer? And yet is there still in the mind a memory of things past? And who denieth that the present time hath no space, because it passeth away in a moment? And yet our consideration continueth, through which that which shall be present proceedeth to become absent. It is not then the future time that is long, for as yet it is not, but a long future is a long expectation of the future. Nor is it time past, which now is not, that is long, but a long past is a long memory of the past. I am about to repeat a psalm that I know. Before I begin, my expectation is extended over the whole, but when I have begun, how much soever of it I shall separate off into the past is extended along my memory. Thus the life of this action of mine is divided between my memory as to what I have repeated, and expectation as to what I am about to repeat. But consideration is present with me, that through it what was future may be conveyed over so as to become past. Which the more it is done again and again, so much more the expectation being shortened, is the memory enlarged, till the whole expectation be at length exhausted, when that whole action being ended shall have passed into memory. And this which takes place in the whole psalm, the same takes place in each several portion of it, and each several syllable. The same holds in that longer action whereof this psalm may be a part. The same holds in the whole life of man, whereof all the actions of man are parts. The same holds through the whole ages of the sons of men, whereof all the lives of men are parts. Chapter 29. But because thy loving kindness is better than all lives, behold, my life is but a distraction, and thy right hand upheld me, in my Lord the Son of Man, the mediator betwixt thee, the one, and us many, many also through our manifold distractions amid many things, that by him I may apprehend in whom I have been apprehended, and may be recollected from my old conversation, to follow the one, forgetting what is behind, and not distended, but extended, not to things which shall be and shall pass away, but to those things which are before, not distractedly, but intently. I follow on for the prize of my heavenly calling, where I may hear the voice of thy praise and contemplate thy delights, neither to come nor to pass away. But now are my years spent in mourning. And thou, O Lord, art my comfort, my Father everlasting. But I have been severed amid times, whose order I know not, and my thoughts, even the inmost bowels of my soul, are rent and mangled with tumultuous varieties, until I flow together into thee, purified and molten by the fire of thy love. Chapter 30. And now will I stand, and become firm in thee, in my mould, thy truth, nor will I endure the questions of men, who by a penal disease thirst for more than they can contain, and say, What did God before he made heaven and earth? Or, how came it into his mind to make anything, having never before made anything? Give them, O Lord, well to bethink themselves what they say, and to find that never cannot be predicated when time is not. This then that he said is said never to have made. What else is it to say then, in no time to have made? Let them see therefore that time cannot be without created being, and cease to speak that vanity. May they also be extended towards these things which are before, and understand thee before all times, the eternal Creator of all times, and that no times be coeternal with thee, nor any creature, even if there be any creature before all times. Chapter 31. O Lord my God, what a depth is that recess of thy mysteries, and how far from it have the consequences of my transgressions cast me! Heal mine eyes, that I may share the joy of thy light. Certainly, if there be a mind gifted with such vast knowledge and foreknowledge as to know all things past and to come, as I know one well-known psalm, truly that mind is passing wonderful, and fearfully amazing. In that nothing past, nothing to come in after ages, is any more hidden from him, than when I sung that psalm, was hidden from me what, and how much of it had passed away from the beginning, what, and how much there remained unto the end. But far be it, that Thou, the Creator of the universe, the Creator of souls and bodies, far be it that Thou shouldest in such wise know all things past and to come. Far, far more wonderfully, and far more mysteriously, dost Thou know them. For not, as the feelings of one who singeth what he knoweth, or heareth some well-known song, are through expectation of the words to come, and the remembering of those that are past, varied, and his senses divided, not so doth any thing happen unto Thee unchangeably eternal, that is, the eternal Creator of minds. Like then as Thou in the beginning knowest the heavens and the earth, without any variety of Thy knowledge, so madest Thou in the beginning heaven and earth, without any distraction of Thy action. Whoso understandeth, let him confess unto Thee, and whoso understandeth not, let him confess unto Thee. O how high art Thou, and yet the humble in heart are Thy dwelling place. Thou raisest up those that are bowed down, and they fall not, whose elevation Thou art. End of Book 11.